Hi everyone, today I'm going to give you some tips moving forward on what you can do to start implementing some healthy sleep habits without the need for sleep training. So this is really important. A lot of the families that I work with, a lot of the families that I see, we don't need to implement any sleep training at all. And that's by implementing these 6 pieces of the puzzle, which I'm going to go through with you in a minute on what they do. So the first piece of the puzzle is a dark room. Make sure that your room or the room they're sleeping in is really dark, like super dark. And what that does, it helps create melatonin. It also helps get your little one to go to sleep easier. It eliminates any distraction or stimulation. So in the end of the day, when your little one is either waking up after 40 minutes or 50 minutes, the opportunity for them to go back to sleep is so much higher if the room is pitch black. If the room is too light, generally speaking, they will have issues going to sleep, and they can also have difficulties linking their sleep cycles because the room isn't quite dark enough. And babies and even small children, all they need is a glimmer of light or a little tiny bit of stimulation and they're awake. So the darker that room you can get, the better. And also, babies and children are not afraid of the dark. So what you want to do is make sure that, like I said, that room is really dark, and close the door as well, because babies under the age of 2.5, they have no sense of fear. So they're not afraid of their room, they're not afraid of their cot, they're not afraid of the bassinet. A dark room is a dark room. So yeah, darkness is key. And if you do need some more advice and tips on how dark is dark, I have done another video, a separate video on how to show you how a dark room is. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle is white noise. White noise is key. Babies come from the womb, it's quite noisy, it's loud. In the womb, it's around 90 decibels in there, 24/7. When they come out, ideally you want to have something that's quite noisy in terms of white noise. I generally recommend for my clients something that sounds like rain. It's got to be consistent, it's got to be quite loud. The one that I recommend, again, I have done a separate video on this that you can go back and have a look at, of how loud it needs to be, how long it needs to be on, which app I recommend. But it's generally on my particular phone, it comes out around about 70 decibels. So it's completely safe. It's fine for babies to have in the bedroom. Use it for the whole nap, and ideally use it for the whole night, especially if you're room sharing. Because what you'll find when room sharing, mum, dad, the pillows, the blankets, the doonas, they're all crunching, they're making noise, and even Barb as well making noise, and those noises are just going to kind of stir and wake everyone up. So white noise is definitely a key part when it comes to the piece of the puzzle. The third piece of the puzzle is a comforter. This is definitely a big piece. Every family and everyone, you do need to be aware, and you do need to be comfortable when you're introducing a comforter to your little one. I really don't recommend it under the age of 5 or 6 months of age. If you do want to introduce it, I probably wouldn't introduce it at nap time. Just purely introduce it to them when they're awake, when they're doing a bit of tummy time, when you might have them in the pram, when you might have them in the car, when they're just out and about, really. For sleeping, as long as your little one has their arms out, is when you want to start introducing the comforter. And this plays a really big key and a big piece of the puzzle. If your little one is attached to yourself or mum or dad or the breast or the bottle, they will find it difficult in most cases drifting off to sleep if they haven't got their own little prop. Us as adults have our own prop. Most of us would fall asleep with a pillow. And if we didn't sleep at night with a pillow, we would have a pretty rough night. And babies are the same. If their prop, yourselves, isn't there, they have a pretty rough night. So by slowly introducing a comforter, it will definitely help with that association. And it's a really long process. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of the families I see say, oh yeah, we tried that, it didn't work. It's a process. It takes time. Most cases it can take 2 to 3, 4 months. And the key is to have it with you and introduce it and have it with them 24/7 until that bond and association is created, and then you can leave it in the cot for naps and bedtime only. So you don't find yourself with a toddler who's 3 years old walking around the shops with a piece of rag. Again, I have done a separate video on introducing the comforter on the highlights, which goes into a lot more detail, but again, that's just number 3 when it comes to the piece of the puzzle. Number 4 is timings. Timing is key. If you put your little one down too early, he won't sleep. If you put your little one down too late, he won't sleep. So every baby's got a sweet spot depending on their age. And I have got wake windows in my Instagram page as well under the highlights. So you know, depending on your baby's age, you can go and have a look at what's relevant to what your baby's capable of staying awake for. But again, like I said, every baby has a sweet spot. So, you know, as an example, a 6-month-old is capable of staying awake for about 2 hours. So at around about the hour and 55-minute mark, you want to at this point go into the bedroom that they'll be sleeping in and do a little bit of wind down time. And that just might be changing the nappy, putting on the sleep suit or sleeping bag and doing a little cuddle. And then at that point, putting them down to bed or feeding or whatever you would do at that point. But you don't want to drag out the wind down period for too long, and you don't want to leave it too late either, because timing is key. And like I said, every baby has a sweet spot, and you just need to figure out what that sweet spot is, because if you do try to put them down too early, they will protest and they will cry for a long period of time. If you put them down too late, they will probably catnap. That's generally one of the things you'll see with overtired babies. They'll catnap. If a baby goes to bed at the end of the day overtired, they generally have more frequent wake ups and more restless night, and then an early rising on your hand as well. So that's generally what equals an overtired baby, which you want to ideally try and avoid. The fifth piece of the puzzle is making sure your little one is dressed appropriately. You want to ensure that your little one is going to bed for the night dressed for the coldest part of the night, which is anywhere between 3 and 5 a.m. Little ones and even toddlers up to the age of 4, 5, sometimes 6 years old, don't know how to use blankets. So that means you need to put them in layers. As an example, you know, right now, where we are right now in summer, you might want to be dressing your little one in a cotton onesie, long and longs, and then even have the fan on low or medium when it comes time to putting them to bed for the night. And then when you go to bed, then at that point you might want to turn the fan off or turn it down, just because when they generally go to bed, their bedtime might be anywhere between 6 and 7 p.m. and it's still warm. It's actually still quite warm and it's quite hot. But around 3 or 4 in the morning is when it gets cool, and if they're not dressed appropriately, they don't have the right layers on, they will wake up. They will be ready for their day. They won't be able to tell you they're cold. They don't understand they're cold. They just wake up kind of restless, not content, and they're certainly not going to go back to sleep. So yeah, layering them up in the right stuff is essential. The last piece of the puzzle, and I've left the best to last, food is key. I cannot rant and stress enough about food. If your little one is not yet on solids, my advice that I offer to all my clients is to offer a top-up meal before their nap. So your day might look something like they wake up at 6 a.m, you give them a boob, off bottle, depending on what they're on. You might give them one side of the boob, both sides, whatever they'll have, a full bottle, whatever they'll have. Then around about 2 hours before they're ready to go down back for their nap, depending on their age, you would then at this point offer a top-up. So if your baby's 6 months old, capable of staying awake for 2 hours, at around about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, I would at this point offer, or advise to offer, a top-up. This might be one side of the breast or 40 to 60 mils of a bottle, and do this in the light environment. You don't want to do this in the bedroom, in the dark environment. You really at this point want, it's business. We're filling up Bub's tummy. This is not an opportunity for him to doze off and have non-eyes and have a cuddle. It is business. We are filling up the tummy, enabling him to be able to go to sleep and stay asleep for a longer period of time. So food is key. If your little one is beyond 6 months and is on solids, my advice is to probably, if you do have a settling issue, increase those solids. Babies and toddlers are very good at controlling their own calories. So that means the more amount of food they're getting overnight, if they're feeding milk, boob, whatever they're getting overnight, it's taking away from their calories through the day. And that is the biggest tip I can give you. If you give them more food during the day, settling them at night and getting them to sleep better and longer overnight on even lengthier periods of time through the day is so much more successful when their tummy is full. And I say this to all my clients. When we go to a buffet, all you can eat, what do we want to do when we come home? We just want to come home and veg out and go to sleep. And that's how we want your baby to feel once they've been fed. We want them to feel relaxed, content, and to be able to go to sleep. And to sleep longer than 35, 40 minutes. if you put your baby down and they're due for a feed in an hour, they are not going to sleep beyond an hour. They're just not. They're not capable of doing that even if they wanted to, because they're hungry. So I could rant about food all day. Food is key. So increase the calories during the day, reduce them at night if that's the issue. And then above all this, if your little one doesn't know how to self-settle, by implementing these 6 pieces of the puzzle, doing the self-settling or trying to do some self-settling after you've implemented all these processes becomes so much easier. And in some cases, sleep training isn't even needed. You might find that your little one is easily going to sleep, is sleeping longer periods of time and not waking up so much through the night because they're content. You know, if the room's really dark, the white noise is reasonably loud, they've got a comforter that they're finally in love with or started to bond with, you know, they're dressed appropriately, the timings are spot on, and their tummy is full, most cases, and most families I work with, they don't need to implement sleep training. All these pieces of the puzzle line up. They do this over a period of 5 or 10 days, and then they are generally, the babies are happier and they figure it out. They can actually self-settle. And if you need to help them with that by being there with them, holding their hand, patting their bum, rubbing their back, all that becomes so much easier when you're not fighting a child that's hungry, or the room's really light and they can see everything, or they don't have any other thing to attach to that they're in love with. So I hope those few tips help everyone. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm happy to answer any DMs that I get. And yeah, good luck everyone, and I hope that helps.